Welcome to week 5 of the Slow Writing Challenge. I am Holly, founder of Loving the Process and your official pace car for this challenge, bringing you your next official challenge, which this week is to look, it's all about your protagonist. How do they grow and change? As I mentioned last week, we are now shifting gears. We were all about the macro of it all, really looking at the whole, what is it? Why is it? What is it all about? What's the themes you're working with? What's the central conflict? And if you haven't nailed that down yet, I highly recommend you take another week or so, or however long it takes to really, really get clear on that, because that is your true north. A lot of writers don't take the time to do that, but I'm already hearing from people in the challenge that they've never done that before and how it's changing things for them. They're already approaching their storytelling so much different and with more depth because they've actually taken the time to really think of those broad strokes of like, what is it all about? So make sure you do that, because now we're heading into a totally new phase. For the next 8 weeks of challenges, I'm really going to take you on an emotional roller coaster ride with your protagonist. Because I truly believe that is one of the first most important places to start. Yes, it will give you a peek at what your plot's going to be, but it really isn't about the plot. That's what I want to say up front too. It's really about following just your protagonist through the emotional journey that they grow on, really feeling into it as opposed to mentally constructing it. In my year-long program, I explain the whys and what fors, but for now, I hope you'll just trust me. The goal will be to walk in your protagonist's shoes, to try to really explore from their point of view like an actor would. Um, Actors always do that. Writers are often worried about the whole big picture of the story, but wow, is it a profound exercise to just walk through the emotional and mental shoes of just one character, to see your story from that point of view. It's like a, Google Street View version. So obviously, in order to take on this challenge, you need to know who your protagonist is. Um, and the short answer to that, for anyone that doesn't know, a lot of you already know, but for those that you don't, it's really the one who grows the most is really all you need to know. Um, a lot of people will think of it as whoever your heroine or your hero is. And that's true, but sometimes I avoid saying it because then it can be a bit tricky at times, because then we think of it as positive or negative or good or bad, but it's not really that. It's really more truly about the one more stuff happens to and the one that grows the most. Whereas the antagonist is really the one that's often getting in the way, the one that's trying to stop the growth. Um, for example, if you really think of it as good or bad or whatever, you might not notice, like if you've ever seen that movie, Mr. Rogers, the filmmakers, I thought it was fascinating. They will tell you that Mr. Rogers was actually the antagonist in their movie. And the reason, I know people are like, what? Mr. Rogers, he is not the villain in this story. And it's true, he's not a villain. But the thing is he was lovely, he stayed lovely, and he ended lovely. So he never really grew that much. He was just always Mr. Rogers. He was actually the antagonist to the reporter character who got sent to do the fluff piece on Mr. Rogers, who then, in the process of trying to learn Mr. Rogers' story, ends up being the one who's changed. In fact, Mr. Rogers really kind of irritates him because he's so freaking lovely. So in that sense, he's the antagonist. So you have to think out of the box. Other people have asked me sometimes too, they don't know because they're telling a buddy story, or, it's truly genuinely an ensemble. So they're like, I don't know, they're all supposed to grow. And that's true. They all should grow. And so in that case, really just pick one. But like, as an example, one of my favorite movies, The Big Chill, that was definitely an ensemble, and all those characters definitely grew. But if I had to pick one, I would have said it's the William Hurt character, because he's the one, first of all, he's the one that's really trying to grow most actively. And in fact, he's the one, he's got the camera set up, and he's like basically stimulating the growth of everybody else, because he's asking them to sort of tell their story. inside of the movie, and then he's the one that ends up changing his whole life at the end. He gets the most confronted in the middle too. So that was who I would say would be the protagonist in that. But you really can't do this wrong. Right or wrong. If you pick one, you're still finding the emotional arc of the thing is going to inform so much, and you need to, you need to know all your characters well. So literally, don't get, for those of you that analyze too much, don't get too in your head about this. Just choose one, and then we're going to work on that for the next 2 months. We're going to have to tell different challenge, you're going to have different challenges that are all going to build on each other about this protagonist until we get through the whole arc. But this week, in order to take on that challenge, I said, where you're going to really see deeply right off the bat how the protagonist has grown, what I want you to do is skip all the way to the ending. I want you to spend a week really thinking deeply about who you want your character, your protagonist, to be and to feel at the end of your story, where they've gotten to. Really feel into that. I know some of you are like, well, the ending, I don't know. That's why I was going on this journey. But just guess. You had to have some sense. If you've been thinking about the macro of it all, there's a reason you were telling this story, and you have to have a place you were hoping to get to. So really think about where your protagonist is at the end of the story. And that doesn't mean it's all happy, happy, joy, joy. I'm not imposing all that on people. Some endings for characters are bittersweet, some are raging victory, and really sort of everything in between. But just what is it? Like, what is that ending? How does it feel? Where do they get to? And let yourself start kind of thinking in that regard, the compare and contrast of compared to where it started and what that distance is. Really, you want a big distance from the beginning of your story to the end of your story. So the ending will help you see that. So dive right into the ending. That's what I want you to work on all week. And it's not too late if you feel like you want more support. If you're one of those people that would really like someone to help you pull the story out of you with lots of prompts and questions, I do that. And we are just starting an 8-week intensive for the emotional arc of the protagonist. So just go to my website at lovingtheprocess.com and get on a call with me, or look at what the programs are, and there's a way you can just sign up. But otherwise, the rest of you just get to it, really journal away on that ending, whatever the heck it is, and just start noticing how much of a stretch it is from the beginning to the end. All right, happy writing.